Geetika, I was reading a little bit about your life. And in fact, we had done one simple exercise once with a group of women founders to say, who do you think you're most proud of or who supported you the most? And one of the answers that came out, interestingly, 7 out of 10 founders somehow went back to their mothers, right? And I was very lucky to have a mother who absolutely had a vision for her 2 daughters, me and my sister, what she envisioned for us from financial independence, what she envisioned for us from education and so forth, being that in her own time and the world she grew up, she had only studied up to 5th grade. As I've grown older, I marvel, where did her courage come from, right? So I want to ask you, what do you think is the role of women in the choices and the success you have had? And whether that's women boss, women in your family, whatever that is. What's the role of women?
Yeah, so I think I would agree. I think if I were to think back on which is the most influential person in my life, it would also be my mom. And, my father passed away when I was very young. And my mom, therefore, had to kind of bring up my brother and me. And the resilience in the face of that challenge, right? So she was a school teacher for fun before that. Then she started, did her B.Ed, her M.Ed, studied while she was bringing us up. Eventually, she was a principal in a Ramjas school in Delhi, for those of you who are in Delhi. So I think that taught me the fact that you can overcome odds. So life will throw curveballs, but you really need to be strong to be able to take that on. So absolutely aligned to saying that kind of propels me during the times when I feel low, saying, it could have been worse, and therefore, how could you take it further? And also then to also credit women at the workforce. I think we stand on on the shoulders of other people, right? They've helped us push us forward. So a lot of people, well, both men and women, who've had the trust in me to saying, you can lead this business, you can handle that. And it would have been, I wouldn't have been where I am without these pivotal conversations with a lot of mentors, and a lot of them being women. I think maybe they understand, they appreciate, they teach you the nuggets. Like when I had my first child, just get enough support, things that maybe a male boss will never tell you. So I remember this female boss came out to me and said, just get enough support, because that'll take your, that off your shoulders, that, that load or that guilt that you talked about. So yeah, it's been really instrumental to where I am here today. And then I think, but it is therefore our duty to carry it forward, because just like we have been helped and we, like I said, standing on the shoulders of others, we need to give them the space and the platform to kind of rise and shine.
So I want to stay on this topic. You're in the rarefied world of very senior, successful women, and I haven't experienced this. I'm fortunate that I've had very, very supportive women in my life, not just family-wise, that of course, but also in my career and my group of girlfriends and all of that. So I've been lucky about that, or I take that as the norm. But there is a thread that women don't support other women, and I didn't experience that, right? So I want to kind of call that out and just put that topic. What is your experience? What are your thoughts on that notion?
I haven't experienced it either. So I've now worked across many decades. I've worked across many companies. And I have never felt necessarily women trying to pull back women. They've been very progressive. Of course, I mean, if your peer sets, you would be as competitive with a male colleague as you may be with a female colleague. But that apart, absolutely never felt that really being a thread that I have seen even happening to other women. So I think the good part is, at least in corporates, there is that equal space and equal respect for what you bring to the table, irrespective of the gender that you kind of represent.
Now, you started your life in sales. And I actually think it's a very good place to start, or at least do a stint in sales at some point, because you get rejected all the time. And I remember one of the most important things I had to unlearn or relearn was not be so sensitive to rejection. You get up again tomorrow and do that. And when I was running my company, obviously, got more no's than yeses. I probably got no's from at least 100 venture capitalists. And it's not just funding, customers, whatever. So what are some of your takeaways on how do you take rejection and still continue with a positivity?
Yeah. So how I got into sales is also a very interesting story. I remember when I got through, so I was SRCC, then I moved to IIM Ahmedabad, and then final placement time, and I had offers from Unilever, P&G, and I'm like a dual specialization in marketing and finance, so Citibank, ICICI. So I call up my mom, like any good child, and said, Mama, which one should I join? And she said, help me understand. I mean, she's not from the corporate world, so I'd give her a brief of most of these companies. And she said, whatever you do, don't join sales because sales is not for women. So then promptly, I had to go join it. I think she saw this streak in me. Now she, of course, says that she's a child psychologist, and she figured that reverse psychology works with me. But I think, well, that's how I got into sales. And from there, I must admit it was hard. Yeah, I will not gloss over it. And this is now 2003. Yeah, so it's many years ago, infrastructure-wise, safety-wise. I've had my challenges. I'd once gone to sack a distributor in Saharanpur. I was handling Western UP, and he took out his gun. And I'm like barely 20-something, and of course, then the trust of your teams, and they help you navigate situations. So you learn so much in sales, right? You learn that you cannot do it alone. You know that you need to support. You need to kind of believe in the others. You need to be able to handle rejections. You need to be able to hold your own, including you're wanting to go to the loo. You need to be able to hold that too, because you wouldn't have that infrastructure. So I wouldn't have water for the full day, right? So it was really challenging, but really fulfilling. And when I moved out from sales, I went to my brands, and I had grown men crying at my farewell, and I'm still in touch with the sales team that I, kind of was leading at that point in time. So the most valuable stint, I would say, is sales. It really connects you, it grounds you, it tells you the truth, and that is something I still do. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had Operation Blue Storm. Everybody in the office went out and did sales. You could be in finance, you could be in HR. We're all in the service of making sales happen. So yeah, I think it's really, really the best stint, I would say.
No, I have encouraged both my daughters to do internships in sales, because I think if you can get that out of the way, cold calling, if you can get the fear of that out of the way, you have a lot you can do. Again, one of the things, it took me a while to figure this out, but the middle class academic mindset doesn't actually make you or encourage you to be an all-rounder. And I think over time, building my life into many parts, whatever that may be, whether that's my interest in hiking or marathon or music or whatever that may be, I think has actually shaped me be a better leader. And sometimes there is this notion of showing that you're very focused or something. But I feel being multidimensional helps. And I read somewhere that do you still dance?
Not really.
Not really.
But I used to. I started learning when I was 7. I did that for practically 14 years till I joined IIM Ahmedabad. Till I was in Delhi, I did, and I've used to follow it very religiously. So yeah, that was one dimension, absolutely.
But my question was, how does setting ambitious goals, right, work-wise, but also bringing balance into life, how do they interplay with each other?
Yeah. So, I've run a marathon once, a full marathon, and that was because I was seeking this, some achievement. So I was going through a work-wise, a low phase. I felt like, I had put in everything and it hadn't really fired the way I wanted for it to. And I was like, I still needed to believe that I could set a goal and achieve it. And that's how my first marathon happened. After that, I really enjoyed running. So I still do the half marathon every year, the Tata Mumbai. And it really balances. I think you need to, as individuals, really have something beyond work. So which keeps you, a sense of equality or whatever, just something which makes you feel that you're part of a larger thing. You're not, sometimes you can be so full of yourself, sometimes it's the other way around, you feel you're in the depths. So it really gives you a sense of balance, and I would strongly encourage everyone in the audience, if you don't have any passion, pick it up now. It's never an old, time not to take it up. But do something beyond work, beyond family, something which is then maybe your time, could be us time, we time, but ensure that you have something beyond just what you call core work.
I'm sure this is not new. Many of the women here, since everyone here is an achiever, you're in the tech world, there are times when you are the only women in the room, and I'm really glad actually this room has, I don't know if I just eyeball it, at least 50-50, maybe 60-40 men here. Thank you for all the men who showed up here and, that having your time, attention, and support, and I think we just give you that gratitude. But there are times when you are the only women in the room, and I'm almost immune to not even pick up that signal, that being the norm most of the time, right? And this is the frequent question that keeps coming up. So I thought, again, well, it's the most common question. How do you handle it? How do you deal with it? And what do you do to ensure your voice is heard? And, so what's your advice to others?
So like I said, when I started off in sales, women in sales were really, really less. So that was always the case where I would be in a sales meeting and usually the only woman in the room. Then once I moved on to brands, there was better. But I think now it is getting better. So if I were to look at my own leadership team, it's a 50-50 men and women ratio. We ensure that across the organization, as much as we can, we get that. But my advice really would be, make your points so compelling that people want to hear you. And I think that's really the important thing. It's really not about being the only woman. It must be the voice of reason, of challenge, of another perspective for which they look out to hear what you have to say. So make yourself, that valuable that you're able to, kind of stand your own. And like I said, of course, if you are in a position where you can, then influence and ensure there are more women and an equal representation at every possible forum that you can make it.
Geetika, you're in as consumer a business as we can get to. And in fact, my career was not in, consumer-centered businesses, but after coming to India, that's a knowledge that I had to develop. Otherwise, until then, my career was largely in technology. And maybe with that backdrop and, everything I've kind of shared here, limited about my life, I remember one of the early consumer companies that I was on the board of. Of course, we are never on the board of large companies. These are young companies, first-time founders that we are involved with. And I still remember they brought their ad agency. This was the first time they were doing any ad. And the agency had this, storyline. The woman has browsed, this is early days of e-commerce, has browsed something online. And then she just has a nice dinner ready, she's dressed up nicely, waiting for the husband to come, and has a nice evening, and all this is 30 seconds, I'm taking longer to explain. But, and then browses and asks the husband, can we buy this, right? I was like, what is this ad? I mean, why does she need the husband's permission? And we had this big argument, okay, about it, and I'm glad they canned that ad. I mean, it never went live, thank God. But the reason I'm bringing up this is, even today, though women do drive significant portion of consumer spending, yet I see only a small percentage of, forget ads, but just the consumer messaging, this notion we have, we call it femtech. Where are we really focusing on the women as a consumer right and center, right? And you're in a very large business, so it may be very different, but young brands that are catering today to women still haven't really connected to that cohort. And I think, Indian women today is a very different person than my mother's generation or even my growing up generation. Can we, get that removed. So what do you see? This is a room full of mostly women startups. There's a lot of consumer brands. So what do you suggest for them?
Firstly, I think the narrative has changed. So if you now glance through advertisements, they are, well, addressing a lot of women. Shortly, you will hear Nandita talk about Myntra, which has a full platform, and a lot of women shoppers who are making their own decisions, not really needing to seek advice or permission from the husbands. And the narrative cannot change unless each one of us in the room makes that change happen, right? So, like you said, you shot down that commercial, or, you know, equally, if we continue propagating these stereotypes, they would continue. And if you were to put a hard stance, no, then it wouldn't happen. So, and I have been engaging with some of the startup founders earlier today. They are making products for women, by women, unabashedly so, and flourishing at that. So, firstly, it's moved, which is brilliant. More needs to be done, but for us and each one of us to really ensure that that is something we actively pull forward. So, and like I said, the rest of the evening you'll get to hear a few more insights around it.
So last question, because I know we are out of time and we could have many, many things to discuss. But one of the things, we'll unveil a report where we did a survey with a bunch of many startup founders, but women get into labels. Maybe all of us do get into labels of one sort or the other, but somehow that labeling seems to, and the perhaps unconscious bias, stereotyping, is a factor in perception or otherwise for most women's notion that they receive less funding, which data supports, by the way. Why is the question we are exploring. This labeling, you know, are you aggressive enough or are you too aggressive? Will anybody want to work with you? Are you tough? Are you too empathetic? And empathy is considered not necessarily a good word sometimes in this context. Or so there are many sort of labels and unconscious biases, which is what has come out in the report as what at least startup founders feel they experience in their journey of leadership. Your comments and, more importantly, your advice.
So we started this conversation and your introduction about me as young. So I just got this Young Alumni Award from IIM Ahmedabad, and I brought it home, and my kids are like, alumni, yes, award, great, but you're not young. So,
that's kids for you, you know, yeah. I mean, always, but you are very young.
So I think the labels can come from any source and completely without malice as well. But you're right. When I was, like I said, in sales, I think I was too soft, right? I was called too soft. I was told to be more aggressive by my, and I will not name, people will know them, but yeah, I was asked to kind of toughen up. And I mean, maybe it was said in my, in my best interests, because, young, woman in sales maybe needed a more tougher exterior. But yes, I have been labeled too soft, yeah? I have been labeled, well, many things. I'm sure a lot of you may have heard it as well. I think the way I would manage, and my advice is, be 100% present in the moment of whatever you're doing. Today I'm with you, my phone is there somewhere, right? So I'm with you, I'm just with you. When I'm at my work, I'm at my work. And therefore nobody can have that slur of saying you're distracted or whatever. When I'm at home, I'm at home. I'm with my kids, and therefore I think I'm the best mom at that point in time because they get my 100% attention. So my advice is, rise above the labels by ensuring you're present and in the moment, by ensuring I at least, what worked for me is I have worked potentially the hardest in the room, right? So I have no qualms in admitting that I'm very focused. I mean, when I went to IMA, the best part for me was it was compulsory attendance, because I would have anyways attended every class. It just was so uncool to be attending every class, so it's brilliant because it was compulsory attendance. But I work very hard. Yeah, I put in my most. So for me, there is no replacement of that diligence that you really need to exhibit. And I think the third piece of advice I would give is be more bold. And that doesn't mean be non-soft, be aggressive, just bolder in the moves that you make, the decisions that you take, your confidence in yourself. Just believe more in yourself and be more bold is how I would leave it.
Since our theme is audacity to dream, how do you define audacity? We have a big claps for her, and this is the last question, so save those. So what does audacity mean to you?
Yeah, as I was hearing about the title, the audacity to dream, for me, the big one, and my mom tells me, when I was very young, I was like, I would have the corner cubicle. And I think that is audacity. And then to put in the work and the effort to be able to reach there is then the ability to make that dream a reality. So yeah, remain audacious, please, each one of you.